Welcome everyone to Tech This Week Radio, our weekly spaces conversation where we talk to tech entrepreneurs about the startups, the products, and the companies that they are building. I'm going to speak to some gentlemen here who broke the internet recently after they announced a partnership between their companies. And that's GB Agboola, who's the founder and CEO of Flutterwave, Sandeep Nawal, founder of Polygon and CEO of Polygon Foundation. And then we're joined by Tomasz Stańczak, who is the co-executive director at Ethereum Foundation. So thank you all so much for joining me. GB, I know Flutterwave was created because of the pain points and fragmentations of what you saw in African payments, right? How the traditional financial system is not really powering cross-border payments. And now this announcement came just recently, got everyone really excited about what this means, what this historic partnership could do for African payments, making T+Instant a reality. So I'm really curious, right? Before we get deep into that, what was that really specific challenge that you saw personally that sparked the original idea for Flutterwave?
Hi, Fatu. Thank you so much. Great to be here. All right. So this takes me back memory lane to when I decided to start Flutterwave and what was for the entire idea itself. Quick background about me. Let me reintroduce myself. Software engineer background. Started my career with paper in the UK, worked for a bunch of banks across Africa. GT Bank, Standard Bank of South Africa, Access Bank, Sterling Bank, where I was responsible for engineering or product across multiple spheres. Then I worked for Google as well, launched Google Tez in India. I started built a company before Flutterwave that was acquired by a bank. Started Flutterwave in 2016 to basically solve for what I call the fragmentation of payments across the continent. As we're all aware, payments in Africa is actually very, very advanced. It's not actually backwards like everywhere else in the world. For example, if I recall, Nigeria was one of the first countries in the world where chip and PIN payment was available. We used to have VEV card with chip and PIN in Nigeria even before the US, right? That's how much Nigeria payment has always been constantly at the forefront of innovation. That's always been there in Nigeria. Now, and you also have M-Pesa in Kenya, obviously. As we all know, M-Pesa is the king of payment in Kenya. Great product, amazing infrastructure. But what is interesting at that time was if you go to a merchant to pay for anything in Nigeria in 2016 or 2015, what you will see is a merchant with 3 point-of-sale devices. They will say, hey, it's one for VEV, it's one for Visa, it's one for MasterCard. And that was the Nigeria experience back then. Now, if you were going to integrate card payments online in 2015, you would need to have an API for whether Visa card, an API for MasterCard, an API for VEV card, right? Or at some point, I think you have both VEV and MasterCard in one API, thanks to InterSwitch. So those were the reality of how Nigeria and payments were at that time. Now, the biggest pain point wasn't that payments wasn't working. It wasn't interoperable. You couldn't make payments in Kenya. M-Pesa wasn't accepted in Nigeria and vice versa, right? You couldn't use an IP anywhere else but Nigeria. You have in Ghana, MTN Mobile Money, amazing product. But obviously that was also available in Nigeria at that time. So the whole point was, how do we bring all these things together and make payments really, really simple? So there was a lot of merchant payment that were disguised as Swift transactions back in the day, right? If I want to pay a merchant in Ghana, when there was no Flutterwave, I have to literally wire money to this from my bank to this merchant or business I'm paying in Ghana. And that money will fly from Lagos to New York to Accra, which makes no sense. You lose money twice, corresponding bank fees comes in between. That was the reality of payments back then. And we decided to take a stab at this problem and build that infrastructure. And we knew from day one, we were not to be domestic in Nigeria. Our goal was not to just be in Nigeria. Our goal was to be Pan-African. So we had a Pan-African vision at that time. I think that was driven by the Pan-African bank I work for, I think, if I think about it now. So that was the dream, which is to build an interoperable payment infrastructure, leverage on what is already working. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to build what has not been built before. Rather, build a super highway that connects all these side roads together, that makes it work really well, and offer that as a single product to businesses, enterprises, consumers who want to pay, want to get paid, either from Africa or they want to get paid in Africa. And the goal was to do that for every of our three core segments: enterprises, SMBs, and consumer. So yeah, I think I'm going to mic. Let me pause there. But that's how we started, basically. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, GB. And I think just even thinking back to what this partnership means, right? There's a reason why blockchain exists today, because just finance, there's a lot of financial friction globally, right? As you just said, you're a business, you need to pay a supplier or send money, it's gone for 3 days, and then he has all these fees eaten inside of it. So that's like the reality of a lot of Africans and individuals, or even just globally. There's a friction tax in the global economy. And Sandeep, you've had such an interesting background. You used to be a CTO of an e-commerce company, Wellspun Group. Then you founded your own company, Scope Weaver, which was a marketplace for professional services. And of course, you worked at companies like Deloitte. But then you spent the last 8 years just building the future of global payments at Polygon Labs. And so I'm just like really curious, right? I mean, you've had a software developer background. What clued you in or just like got you really bullish about blockchain technology?
I think most of the people like me who joined the blockchain space in 2016, 17, one of the biggest slogans of crypto was banking the unbanked, right? And coming from India, seeing the financial inclusion at a very low rate, as well as that a lot of people trying to get out of the system because system is too complex, taxes them too much and all that, which is a common story in many, many countries. I think those were the initial kind of ethos or ambitions to join crypto, that you will be able to bank the unbanked. And once you get into a blockchain, then you realize that the space is very big and there is like decentralized finance, which basically took off in 2020 and has taken like 3 to 4 years to mature. And today, some of those DeFi applications are being compared to the some of the existing top banks in the world. So the core focus always to in joining blockchains and working on blockchains is to create this open financial world, which is not governed not at all by one single person, but even not even like one single company or a group of company, but is governed natively on the internet. Those are the core ethos. And in 2025, after President Trump got elected in the US, suddenly, and as he is opening up the regulatory regime to crypto, especially stable coins are taking off in a very, very kind of exponential way. And now people are able to see the original dream that we all saw to bank the unbanked and make it really possible. Because in between 2018 and 25, or the end of 2024, the regulatory regime for crypto was extremely difficult, and it was extremely difficult to do any utility or the real world business in crypto. But I think now the floodgates have been opened, starting with the openness of the US regulatory regime. And now it is spreading across the globe, and we are seeing immense attraction across especially the emerging world, in the Latin, in Africa as a whole, in Southeast Asia. And with Polygon, I'm really happy that we focused on those, especially LATAM, Southeast Asia, and the Asian payment rails initially because of the core ethos of banking the unbanked. And I think that is showing us some traction in the local stable coins in LATAM and Southeast Asia. We have like roughly 70 to 80% of the market share for these local stable coins. That means non-US, non-Euro stable coins, and it is growing from there. And the partnerships like Flutterwave, which I have heard from a distance about great things about GB, and that it is the Stripe of Africa. So makes me really proud and feel that we are going in the right direction to make this open financial world.
All right. Thank you, Sandeep. And I really want to get into the behind the scenes and the backstory of this partnership, because I also want to get Tomasz's input on this just based on how he sees this partnership working, right? So, but before we do that, GB, Flutterwave joined the Circle Payment Network earlier this year. And for people who were watching closely, it felt like the natural next step into blockchain, right? And of course, you made this big announcement about your partnership with Polygon. So I just really want to know, like, what was the genesis of this integration, right? Like, how did that conversation with the team at Polygon Labs happen before we got this announcement recently? And also, a very important question, why did Flutterwave choose Polygon specifically over other ecosystems like Base or Solana? Because that was one of the questions that people were asking when the announcement was made.
Right. Thank you so much. So let me start with the Circle Payment Network question first. So the approach, I think from day one, if everybody knows how we approach payments at Flutterwave, we always say something that is very, very key. And it's not cliche, it's a reality. Payment is partnerships. You can't build a payment stack without having other API in between in that stack. It's not possible, right? You need a whole bunch of ecosystem players to make a payment transaction successful, right? When you go online and you take out your payment type, let's say you're paying a bank transfer, for example, in Nigeria, and you pay a business, behind the scene, there's so many network layers involved. There is infra layer from NIPS. Shout out to NIPS infrastructure right there. There is your bank partner who is providing the account number. Because if you're not a bank like Flutterwave, you have to use banking partner, banking rails to make that work. There is everything that happens in between settlement, reconciliation, everything that makes that payment to work and go through to have a proper, real payment experience to happen. So that same is what we take to everything that we do at Flutterwave, right? And the goal is, how do we make sure we actually build the right infrastructure that helps us to power the next wave of payment across the continent? So with Circle, for example, we partner with Circle because obviously it's a premier, publicly listed issuer of stablecoin. We saw the opportunity basically in enabling access for our client to be able to use Circle infrastructure. And I'll give you a very simple use case. We're seeing data right now where SMBs who have suppliers outside of Africa, you want to pay a supply, let's say you're an SMB in the fashion space, you are importing fabric from somewhere in Southeast Asia or in the US, and your supplier tells you, if you pay me with bank wire through Swift, that money will get there in 3-4 days. No problem. Then they recently added a new payment type. They're saying, oh, if you pay me with USDC, I get that money instantly, even on a Sunday or on a Saturday, on a Friday night. If you're a business in Nigeria or in South Africa or in Ghana or whatever you are on the continent, you will know if you pay a supplier on Friday, you've just paid them on Monday. There's no difference, right? Before that Monday in payment, right? In TradFi payment, unless you are using M-Pesa or NIP or whatnot. So if you are doing cross-border payment, that time difference affects your cash flow, affects your supply chain, affects everything. So we have real use cases of businesses who are saying, I want to pay my supplier. I have gotten paid from my own customers using Flutterwave in Nigeria or in Ghana or in South Africa. And now I have accumulated, let's say, maybe ₦1 million on my platform, right? On my Flutterwave dashboard. I want to pay a supplier who needs to supply me goods. And that supplier says to me, if I have USDC, I can pay them. Now, with our Circle Payment Network participation as a direct participant, now that payment becomes very easy. That business, that supplier can get paid from that Flutterwave customer, business customer, real time, literally. Because with stablecoin, that's what you enable. It's just making payments simple. And part of our goal as a company is, how do we make sure we meet businesses and consumers where they are, right? Even if there's not much adoption of stablecoin yet in some African markets, if the supplier to that business already has stablecoin as a payment method that they've trusted, we as a payment infrastructure, we have to make sure we are connected to that same payment system to allow our merchants seamlessly pay the supplier. That is the whole point of an interoperable payment superhighway that we have today as a company. And that's where this comes up. So our goal with the CPN was the same goal we've always had. How do we connect our businesses and our consumers to as many payment types as available in the world today? If you use Amex or Discover, we're going to enable you. You use pay bank transfer, open banking. You accept USDC. You accept USDT. Fine. We will make it happen for you as a business because guess what? That's what we're supposed to do. So the goal behind partnering with Circle was literally just that. Now, when it comes to Polygon, similarly, right? We wanted to choose a blockchain that is extremely resilient and that we can use to build for scale, right? We are not going to invent our own blockchain. That makes no sense when the work startup and his team speak for itself. And our goal really is, how do we choose the right blockchain infrastructure that will enable us to scale? We start small, we grow it quickly, we scale it, we iterate as we go along. How do we make that happen? And Polygon checked all the boxes we're looking for. Hence why they're literally our first blockchain infrastructure that we're working with right now in achieving this global payment open system that it makes it easy for an African small business to pay their supplier, and they can pay their supplier in seconds. Because guess what? They are on Flutterwave platform, and we are building, working with Polygon, and we're issuing USDC, we're issuing whatever stable coin that you require. Because as far as we are concerned, we need to connect the business, the consumer, to the payment types that is native to them. If USDC is what you require, hell yes. If it's Alipay you want, hell yes. Our goal is make payments simple for the African business. If that business tomorrow also has a supplier who wants to pay them from anywhere in the world and it's USDC, they should be able to accept USDC on Flutterwave. The same way they can accept Amex and Discover today. The same partnership that we did with Amex and Discover, where we enabled Amex cardholders to work on Flutterwave, that's the same thing we're doing with Polygon and USDC to ensure we can make it simple and native and do it in a way whereby we're solving for use cases. Because my business clients do not know anything about a hash address. They don't. They just want to pay somebody. It has to be that simple for them. So we're going to abstract all of that and focus on specific use cases that solves their specific payment need. In Africa, it is a need. Money transfer outside of Africa, it is a hassle. It is not simple. It is expensive. It is cumbersome. We all know this. We're moving on in Nigeria, for example. It works. Why? We've got NIPS. NIP works really well. But we're moving money across border, it doesn't work, right? We're depending on a system that was built maybe probably 50 years ago. Now is the time for us to use new infrastructure to make that happen. And while saying that, we're still leveraging on amazing tools as well, like the PAPS infrastructure that's being built by the PAPS FCTA framework that is also enabling this as well. So all these tools that we have on the continent is going to help us to get included as we go about. The goal is, if you're an enterprise merchant, you want to get paid from Africa, I want to get your money, it should be so simple. Very simple. You're a small business, want to pay a supplier, very simple. You're a consumer, you already have USDC in the US or in the UK, or wherever you are in the world, and you want to send money back home. Why not, right? That's your point. This is going to help to drive more remittance into Africa, drive more supply payments, make the ease even better, and ensure that enterprise payment actually gets solved now, and it becomes literally almost real time. That's the goal behind. And with Polygon, we were able to ascertain that we're able to achieve that with the infrastructure. And the answer is when, not if.
Okay, Thank you so much for that. And then, Tomasz, I'm so curious about how you see all of this. I read in an article recently that your transition into a leadership role at the Ethereum Foundation signals a shift in focus. So, of course, before it was more protocols, ecosystem, and now you're going more into like communication, scaling, ecosystem, what all of that infrastructure actually does for Ethereum's next phase. And of course, when you look at this kind of partnership with a company that's like really leading Africa's fintech space and all the work that Polygon is also doing to make blockchains transactions faster and easier. So for you, like, what excites you the most about the Flutterwave and Polygon's partnership, especially since this is the part of scaling that Ethereum has been trying to unlock for a while?
Hey, yeah, sure. I think that what excites me the most is the potential for impact. The fact that you have, millions of users coming closer to the Ethereum ecosystem, but ideally without knowing and simply benefiting from the fact that many people over years were building the blockchain rails and support to improve the accessibility of the global payment systems. And this year was definitely transformational for stablecoins globally. The Ethereum Foundation has spent a lot of time visiting, talking to the regulators and institutions in many countries, working on stablecoins, on local stablecoins, thinking about how to improve the payments, cross-border payments. You see, like, all of that drive from the changes that came in the US and last year, opening, like, practically setting the green light for the new implementations, and seeing that coming to Africa with such an impact, those quite quickly compared to many other solutions in other continents. It's super promising because many of the blockchain builders have been for the last years trying to be successful in Africa because of those values that we keep talking about. Like Sandeep mentioned, banking the unbanked was one of the slogans. And it's extremely difficult because you see there were technical challenges, technological challenges, and there were severe regulatory challenges. And now seeing as this being part of that massive change this year, more payments, more access to the blockchain ecosystem is just the beginning. And that's also part of the excitement that when you enable payments, when you bring people closer to stablecoins, when you bring people closer to Ethereum ecosystem, it means that it also gradually opens the international financial markets to the everyday user. To maybe mention the recent blog post from Vitalik Buterin, it creates access to low-risk DeFi. So it opens access to lending and all the other aspects of the on-chain exchange. So this altogether creates massive excitement because it will open opportunities for the merchants, for the users, for startup founders to access global finance much more easily. And seeing that happening on Polygon as well, that has been for years innovating and improving Ethereum ecosystem and bringing a lot of success to so many markets. It's also extremely exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the reasons why people were just like really geeking out and freaking out when this partnership was announced was because it felt like finally, in terms of financial institutions actually taking blockchain transactions seriously, that this was already like really happening, right? And I know with Africa, there's different regulations across the continent. So countries are slowly picking up when it comes to non-traditional financial rails. So this was such an exciting moment for everybody. And for you, Sandeep, one of the things that Polygon said that I found like really interesting when the announcement was made was your company called this partnership one of the largest real-world stablecoin deployments in emerging markets to date, spanning 30 plus African countries, right? I mean, Flutterwave already pretty much owns that market. And now the Polygon is like doing this partnership. So like, how do you see this partnership working? Will merchants and users interact directly with Polygon wallets, or is Polygon becoming an invisible settlement layer, meaning users still experience Flutterwave the same way, but transactions clear on chain? Like, how do you see this working?
Yeah, so I think very relevant question. And one of the key goals of Polygon, and we have Tomasz here also, and the Ethereum ecosystem also has been that at the end, the users are going to interact with the applications, and applications use Flutterwave directly. So we expect the user experience of the users using and the merchants using these applications who are underneath using Flutterwave or on the Flutterwave itself. We don't expect the users to use or be exposed to any different kind of user interface. The blockchain should be completely abstracted away from them, the way the internet, TCP/IP, and all these HTTPS is abstracted away from them. So we expect that. And Polygon just acts as this, like I call it the execution layer, where the transactions are executed. And then since Polygon, whichever Polygon blockchains you see in various different forms, the security and the settlement is also ensured by Ethereum, which is this large $500 billion global ledger, and which has this immense amount of decentralization and trust, where institutions hold hundreds of billions of dollars sometimes of their and so the settlement there is rock solid. So the world I envision is that Polygon chain that where Flutterwave is actually deploying, but in future many more institutional chains. I also feel like as Flutterwave's experience on Polygon will grow and they will feel more comfortable on blockchain, like GB and team are going to think that, okay, maybe we need 5 million, 10 million transactions per day for our own. And that time you would probably spin up your own blockchain. And that's where like Polygon provides that, the blockchain environment where you will have the execution layer, but the settlement is provided via Ethereum using the Polygon product that we have called Ag layer. So Polygon chain and the Ag layer, these are the two core products. Polygon chain is this shared public blockchain where you can very easily deploy zero cost deployment, and you have so much of this plumbing, fiat on-ramp, off-exchange integrations, fintech integrations are already there. But then if once your use case becomes big enough, you want to have your own dedicated execution environment, you can have any other form of like the zero knowledge, ZKL2s that we say, they all get their security and settlement on Ethereum. So at the end, all of these blockchains are abstracted away and the users will have the same user experience that you guys are already providing in an amazing way.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I know some of the questions that people were curious about was like, what is going to change about this partnership with Flutterwave? So of course, people who use Flutterwave's products, is the layout going to change? Like, what does that look like? It almost felt like people were kind of like worried about if they had to start learning product education from scratch again. But of course, you've explained that Polygon is going to be the invisible layer and you still have the same experience until that changes at any point. So I'm going to take some questions soon, just a few questions very soon. I know Sandeep will have to leave at some point, but we have GB and Tomasz to the hour. So if you've got any questions, feel free to click on the request button. You can comment on the space here or send me a DM if you're too shy, and I'll ask it when we get to the questions and answers portion of this conversation. GB, mic drop moment. I think that was probably the part that people were geeking out about in your post about this partnership when you said pilot 2025, full rollout 2026. So what does this mean for enterprise customers right now that use Flutterwave who move money? What does it mean for SMB users on Flutterwave's platform, or me as a stand-up user sending money across the world? Like, what does a full rollout look like?
Right. So for this year, we're still doing the right, check the boxes, cross our T's, dot our I's as expected. But for enterprise customers, I will say when we do a full rollout, it's going to be basically how money is moving. One thing that will be very obvious is just imagine a CFO gets settled via Flutterwave and they can basically they can audit their own on-chain flows 24/7, right? That is big opportunity where we have a blockchain. Reduce treasury friction. So if you're an enterprise customer who wants to like fund your Flutterwave position to do payout, before now you have to do wires to your Flutterwave account. When this is live, you can fund via USDC, you can fund via USDT, you can fund via this Polygon blockchain infrastructure. And that will basically eliminate a need for next day funding. You can then do real-time funding, right? And that's what this is going to basically be. Enterprise will have lower working capital costs because obviously today, the fact that you need to fund somebody before you need to make a payment is literally you extending credit, right? And that will not be there anymore. For SMBs, this is a game changer in my opinion. An SMB in Nairobi can basically receive payment from their customers from any of the stable coins, and we will be able to either convert to local currency or they can keep it on-chain in stablecoin as well. It levels the playing field in my opinion. No more waiting days to pay a supplier, no more losing margin due to delays. you have access to a truly global customer base as a business. Now, there's so many customers today who have one chain or one coin or the other. Being able to accept those payments from these customers will be a massive unlock for the African SMB or Nigeria to be specific. In my opinion, this creates what I call financial equality in payment, right? People are able to transact as efficiently as their counterparts anywhere in the world. Why should being in Africa be a barrier to an African business? It shouldn't be, right? So if we build this right, and when we go live and a full rollout, there will be true financial equality in payment, because you can do exactly what a small business would do in the US with Coinbase. You can do so on Flutterwave, because you can get access to same USDC, same stable coin that you can see anywhere else in the world, right? For SendApp, this will help a lot, where even though blockchain is invincible, it will be transformative, right? Users will see something like before, that's not going to change, but under the hood, a lot of them will run through Polygon Rails. It will be faster, cheaper, global. Just imagine the fees are lower now. You get better rates automatically, and you can have your own stablecoin wallet in your sender. Just think about that, what I would look at in the future, where you've got your NGN wallet, USD wallet, you have your USDC wallet, right? All built on our partnership with Polygon. That is what this does. And this also opens up more corridor, because once we have this live, you can send money to anybody literally, right? Because guess what? If they have access to stablecoin, they can get that money as well, convert back to stable or back to fiat as they like, because that is the opportunity here. And it is about letting consumers experience speed, affordability, reliability like they never experienced before. This is not about teaching them how to do blockchain. No. This is about experience speed, make it simple and make it easy. For me, it's just move money across the border even more instantly, reduce friction and costs, and then ensure we have programmable financial products that can open literally new markets for any enterprises.
I have one question for GB actually.
Okay, yes. Go ahead, please.
I wanted to ask GB, like, when did you what was your first crypto interaction? Your personal story on first time you came across crypto and first time you used crypto for anything.
Right. Okay. My first crypto interaction was actually, I was living in Joburg, working for Standard Bank. That was 2010, yes. And that was when I got my first Bitcoin. That was 2010, yes. And
that's very early.
Yeah, it was pretty early. And then since then, I've been an avid blockchain follower. I think for me, it was really just the possibilities, right? Because one thing that I saw with blockchain is the openness of financial transaction, and what that could do in terms of payment infrastructure, reconciliation, remittances, B2B payment. And that for me was the fascination around that. And also when we know how money moves across the continent, you see the fact that obviously money doesn't move, instruction moves. If that's the case, instruction can move even faster on the blockchain than on non-blockchain platforms. And that was for me was the fascination at that time.
Ladies and gentlemen,
One second. I think we have like Vitalik Buterin, who's our Ethereum. He's here.
I was just about to say yes.
It's a big thing. Like Vitalik is the leader of the blockchain space and a global leader who everybody looks up to when things are talked about blockchain. And Vitalik, I wanted you to talk a little bit, if possible, about how do you see Ethereum's role as stable coin payments go viral and cryptos moving mainstream with payments and stablecoin, and what's the overall view you see Ethereum powering this infrastructure, which is now taking over the world? Vitalik, over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, on stablecoins, I think, I'm definitely been very happy to see the growth of stablecoins and all of the payments and savings use cases that have been happening. I think these kinds of applications are kind of the bread and butter of the real world value that Ethereum has been bringing to a huge number of people. So excited to see it really succeed. And I think also excited to see all of the role that Polygon has played in just making all of the stable coins more accessible. So I think Ethereum especially over the past year has definitely become the home of more and more stable coins that have been issued on top of it. And I think our vision has been for the Ethereum L1 to be a hub for all of this kind of economic activity to happen and to be possible. And so I think we also appreciate all of the work that Agboola has been doing, which in a lot of ways is really complementary to that. Also been excited to see growing interest in issuing more kinds of stablecoins. Like I think stablecoins should not just be US dollars. It should be, we should see stablecoins in all kinds of different local currencies, and at least to get to the point where it's like as practical for people to use a stablecoin for any currency that they wants to use. And so I know there's a lot of people working on like on-ramps, off-ramps, and various different projects for that. Generally excited to see the space continuing to grow.
Yeah, and Fatu, I was originally speaking that one of the primary reasons or primary mottos of blockchain used to be that banking the unbanked, and Vitalik is one of the key leaders who pioneered those ethos within the entire ecosystem. And Vitalik has also personally, apart from Ethereum overall, personally has been helping the emerging economies, Africa, India. He's donated personally hundreds of millions of dollars across the board. I also started something in India, and Vitalik donated like hundreds of millions of dollars to that during the COVID time. So I think like this, Vitalik, for you also, it should be especially meaningful when Flutterwave, which is generally considered Stripe of Africa, is going all in on stable coins, launching stable coins across 30 countries in Africa. And as I was explaining, that all of these execution environments, which are simply allowing these stablecoin payments, which are low-cost payments, they are powered by the settlement and the security that is provided by Ethereum to these layers. So yeah, I hope that this is especially pleasant for you to hear that Africa is also going all in on stablecoin payments on the retail level.
Yeah, and I think the whole world has a right to not just be healthy and well-fed, but to have equal ability to be first-class participants in the technological 21st century economy. And so I really appreciate all of the efforts that you also have been doing to make that happen across multiple fronts, including the Polygon and crypto, and including all of the Indian biotech stuff that you've continued to work on. So thank you.
Vitalik, so you wrote this Ethereum white paper age 19 in 2013, and now it's been like, 12 years later. Did you imagine that Ethereum was going to do what it's doing right now, to the point now where you're doing partnerships like this with Polygon, Flutterwave, and just the global adoption that's happening right now and continuing to happen? Did you envision that this was going to be the case when you wrote that white paper?
No, I didn't. I did not. The level of growth that we've seen has been completely crazy, and it keeps impressing me every year.
That's really amazing. Congratulations. And thank you so much for joining us on this space, for sure. So, so I have another question for you as well. So now that Ethereum has this partnership with, of course, powering Polygon, has this partnership, because what I see from this partnership is like, this is a very intentional effort to actually scale blockchain technology across the world, right? And this is like a very good use case. So what other ways are you seeing more adoption for blockchain, not even just for institutions like Flutterwave, but for regular users like myself, people who don't necessarily follow what's happening in the Web3 space? Like, how do you see this actually like going down to people being able to use stablecoins to pay for coffee at Starbucks, for example?
I mean, I think it would be definitely ideal if like stablecoins could be usable for everything from international trade to paying for coffee at Starbucks. Like the thing that we've seen over this year, right, like over the past couple of years, is this growth of these crypto attached cards. And I mean, I know that's definitely been good for a lot of people, though that's also kind of limited in its own way, right? Because you're still relying on the banking system. You're still paying fees through the banking system. And so if there's some way to do a kind of next step where if the consumer and the merchant, both have crypto rails, then the transaction just automatically happens through stablecoins. And especially if we have very easily available open source tools, so that regardless of what currency and what L1 or L2 the merchant wants, and then on the other side what currency and where the consumer has their points, it's able to just like automatically route and swap the payments, and like everything is very clean and compatible. So the more that we can build toward that, I think the better. Like we are getting closer, but I personally keep trying to like actually pay with crypto in every time I'm in a city where I'm told that there's people who accept it. But I remember, actually last year I tried, and like 3 out of 3 times it failed because there was like some incompatibility between the wallet and the merchant. So like I think with every passing year, these things decrease, and we have to just keep decreasing them.
All right. I would love for GB to also jump in here and speak to you, especially since they are essentially building a platform. But I have a question to ask for the crypto Nigerian lovers in the space right now. I know they're going to gut me if I do not ask. When are you coming to Nigeria?
I think
you mean when it's GB hosting him in Lagos?
There we go.
That's a better question.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the question is like, when do you guys recommend for me to come?
All right, here we go. GB, when do you recommend?
After we go live to every customer, let's do like Q1 of next year. Then we can host you in Lagos. Yeah.
Okay. Anytime after Q1 next year. Okay. Yeah, we'll keep that in mind.
Fantastic.
Yeah, excited to see you guys.
GB, do you have any questions for the co-founder of the infrastructure layer that you're now building on?
I have his number, Fatu.
Okay. That was in my job moment. There's nothing else to say. Okay.
Just kidding right there. I want to also ask a very interesting question, which is basically, as we're building this platform and working with you guys on this partnership, what are the things that you guys have seen as regards Africa adoption of stablecoin? And how do you think we can leverage that to drive this, make it even more successful? I think for us, it's very key that we do things that affect our people on the continent. That for me is a very big goal for me and for all of us at Flutterwave, because we want to just not drive another payment platform, but actually what actually solves problem for the average African in Africa or African in diaspora. Excuse me. What are your recommendations as we navigate all of this?
Wait, so sorry, was that question for me?
Yes, that was for you. Vitalik, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Vitalik.
Yeah, sorry. What are the recommended?
I think the question. Do you want the question? Repeat the question, Vitalik?
Yes, actually.
Yeah. Because I think, like Fatu, you said that the platform you're partnering with, I think, like indirectly, it's Flutterwave is partnering and building on Ethereum only via Polygon. But I think Vitalik thought that question was for me. GB, if you could repeat.
Yeah.
Just to get his perspective regarding how we can leverage the institutional knowledge that you have regarding how Africans are embracing blockchain, and how do we ensure this, what we're building is actually impactful and drives value for our users on the continent.
Yeah, I mean, I think within the foundation, we definitely have people that have been very well connected with the African crypto ecosystem. Actually, are you in touch with anyone from the foundation yet?
Not me directly. I think maybe my team is. Yeah.
Okay. No. That's good. I'll ping them and make sure, because there's definitely people who have thought about both like Africa and these kinds of problems a lot. So
maybe it's worth to add as well that there are not only African communities, but Asian communities that are looking into how to build connections, build the bridges. So you're asking here about the opportunities, improvements based on what we've observed with the African ecosystem. I think reaching out and connecting further with those who build the startups that enhance the payment systems from Africa to be available for Greater China, for Southeast Asia, and so on, would be interesting next step. And then I think observing many other payment systems, they grow into almost like full neobank approaches. And if we look at what Standard Chartered was publishing is an analysis of the stablecoins ecosystem. Much of the stablecoins flows are just people looking for holding stablecoins for safety, looking for balances to be held, and I think this is the type of services that they'll be looking at from their payments providers as well.
That's amazing. Vitalik, I'm really curious about how you see crypto and regulation, right? I mean, the US launched the Genius Act recently, which is a regulatory framework for stablecoins. But I think one of the barriers to crypto adoption globally is really regulation, right? So how do you see different countries scaling that to enable adoption?
And I don't think there's a single worldwide answer there, right? I think every country has its own regulation, and there's a lot of positive change that we've seen in regulatory environments in a lot of places. So I think what we generally see, right, is that there's a lot of startups that focus on making it really easy to do crypto finance for particular corridors, for particular sets of countries and contexts, and they tends to figure out banking relationships and regulation, regulatory relationships and all these things in some number of countries that they specialize in, and then they're able to make those links happen. So I think in some places that'll be possible in sooner than in other places, and that's fine. I mean, from my side, the kinds of high-level themes that regulators are both interested in and on the other side concerned about, they're similar to what the themes have been previously. I think the facts that we're now a couple of years receded from the FTX situation, and that security has also improved since then, has definitely been a positive. Otherwise, it's just a matter of keeping it up and just being able to show to the public and everyone that we're providing value.
All right. Okay. Let me give someone from the audience a chance to answer a question. Okay, Monica, do you want to ask a question?
Absolutely. Thanks, Fatu. And thank you for letting me on stage. Vitalik, you're currently in Latin America. You're there for DevConnect. And so curious, I see a lot of synergies and opportunities for collaboration with Africa and Latin America. Is that an opportunity for discussion during DevConnect? I know that we'll have a good group from Africa and at this event. So just curious if you see opportunities for learning together, collaboration, and anything you can share for DevConnect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not one of the co-organizers, but I know that in every single historical DevConnect, we're going back quite a few years, we've had a heavy section talking about the global financial inclusion next billion and helping them create those different links both within the communities and between them and the rest of the Ethereum community. I mean, I remember last year there was a 1.5 hour session focused in Southeast Asia that I was sitting in, and then I think there was one for there was one for Southeast Asia and there was one for Africa, and I think I recall I was in both. So these kinds of things do happen. So I fully predict that we're going to see, I mean, especially since it's in Latin, we're going to see a lot of that at DevConnect.
That's great. Looking forward to it. I think you'll see a lot of great projects from LATAM, but I'm also really excited to meet a lot of people from around the world. So thank you.
Yeah, Fatu, we requested Vitalik for a quick kind of turn up on this thing. I don't know, Vitalik, how much time you have. I hope that we are not taking a lot of your time.
I do need to go in a couple of minutes, so maybe this should be the last one for me.
Okay. Let me not hog the mic. Who wants to ask Vitalik a question? Or I would, if you're currently on stage, I want to ask him a question before he leaves, then feel free to unmute your mic and do that. Nobody? Okay. Vitalik, I'll ask you this before you go. So if we imagine a future where blockchain quietly powers Africa's payment rails behind the scenes, what part of that vision would you hope Ethereum plays? Do you think it would be the protocol, the settlement layer, or something else entirely?
I mean, I think if African payments rails go on the blockchain, ultimately, it will look a lot of things will be very similar to the ways that we've seen crypto adoption happen in other places already, though I think one of the differences will be that just like the level of integration is likely to be quite a bit deeper. And so I expect that once payments happening, there will be other kinds of large-scale DeFi that are happening. There will be a need for things like large-scale automated market makers and things to help people easily convert between currencies. That's probably one need that's also greater for Africa than it is for something like the US, right? That there's this larger number of currencies that you need to move toward. And I know there's a strong desire to kind of compete and create alternatives to what's often the current channel, which is like converting from one country to the dollar and then from the dollar right back to the neighboring country. And so I expect a lot of interesting challenges and opportunities on the decentralized exchange side, and then also like lending and FX and that whole ecosystem, and then also eventually then getting into investments. And I mean, I see the role of the L1 as being for a hub for liquidity and where all of these like heavyweight financial operations can happen. I see the role of L2s and the role of things like Polygon to be enabling a lot of like very high scale activity and making it possible for things to happen with very low transaction fees that are absolutely important. So those are basically the two sides, right? That you need the security and the market depth, and then at the same time you need the scale. So I think there is a big opportunity for Ethereum to play a really important role there.
All right. Thank you so much, Vitalik, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Shout out to you, Sandeep, Tomasz, GB, for making this happen. As you can see, everyone is so excited that you joined us today. So thank you for taking time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Vitalik. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, T Rankin is back, and she had a question for you, Sandeep. Sandeep, Tomasz, how many more minutes? GB, how many more minutes do you have? I think GB has dropped down again.
I'll be slowly wrapping up. So if there's some specific question, then I can answer that one before leaving.
Okay. So, let me ask you this before I give T Rankin the mic to ask Sandeep a question because he has dropped. I mean, you spent a lot of years building Nethermind, which is one of Ethereum's key execution clients. Like, what are some lessons from building deep infrastructure that fintech and blockchain developers in emerging markets could apply as they scale? Because I feel like people like really look up to you and your career and what you've built. Like, what are those things that you think some of the lessons that people can learn?
Maybe one that will be deeply relevant here is that as we were building Nethermind, we were looking for international access to talent. So we were a bootstrapped company. We had to find talent in most unexpected places from a perspective of like where it would be harder to hire, but you find extremely talented people. And because of that, we reached out everywhere around the world, including Africa. And without blockchain, many times we would never be able to hire and pay people in those locations. And we had many hires in Nigeria, in North Africa, in South Africa, in East Africa, many regions. And each time when it was happening, when I saw people who otherwise would have trouble to collaborate, to get payments, to get visas, each time when it was happening, I was thinking that we're really changing the world through this borderless payments. And I think every collaboration like this, when we're bringing stable coins to people, to merchants, to developers, to founders, is opening the opportunities and allowing the talents to shine and benefit from massive effort that people are putting into education, into learning, into building their own futures. And I think it was a very, very important part of the Nethermind success, the fact that we could connect with builders in Africa and around the world.
Thank you so much for that, Tomasz. I watched your interview at the Ethereum Community Conference in June, and it was such an enlightening insight into all the work that you're doing at the Ethereum Foundation. And of course, that is also super central to partnerships like the one that Flutterwave and Polygon has. And I'm just like really excited to see how that scales across the continent and the world, and connecting Africans to the world and vice versa with just like really seamless payments. I know Tomasz, Sandeep, and GB have dropped. I think it's a network thing, but just really wanted to thank you for taking the time out today. Sorry to Yankin for taking the time out today to speak to us and talk about his partnership. And I'm sure, hopefully, when Vitalik is coming to Nigeria, you join him too and come enjoy the scenes and sites here in Lagos. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone who came to listen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. GM. Bye.